Welcome back. So for this video, we are going to go ahead and jump into the actual logo and branding project instructions. So this video is going to go over the first five steps. So kind of the first half, which is just essentially grabbing everything, prepping it, and throwing it into Illustrator. And then for the purpose of time, I'm creating a second video that you can watch after this, where I walk through the actual process of playing with an Illustrator. I show you a bunch of different tools and tips and tricks to be able to work with your logo and finish it up. And so let's go ahead and get started. So step number one, you first need to do your logo brainstorming. So you should already have a mood board in mind. Here's mine, so you can see what that looks like, but you should have already completed this and turned it in. And so being able to sketch out some different ideas should be fairly simple. You can sketch them just on a sketchbook, in a notepad, honestly, like on a napkin, it doesn't matter, but I just want you to be thinking about how you can put things together and what you might use to put together to create your very specific logo. And make sure that you're following through with the things that we talk about in the intro to logo video. So keeping things simple, relevant to your brand, and then also creative and purposeful, okay? When you're doing that, think about if you want imagery, if you want lettering, what is that lettering going to look like? What are those images going to look like? Because those are going to then help you on our next steps. So once you've brainstormed a little bit, then you're ready to go ahead and choose a font, which you might already have one in mind from creating your mood board, but we want to make sure that we have something. When you do that, think back to our unit on typography. Remember, typography choices create a feeling, emotion that may support, and so support this whole concept of your brand, or they could potentially challenge it if you're not careful, so be wise. And as always reference your mood board. So going back to my mood board, here is my concept. I am designing masks that are called Safely Sweet. That's my brand name. My motto is protecting yourself and others has never been so sweet. My target audience is young girls or young boys who struggle to keep their mask on. I just in particular thought of my daughter who loves sweet things. And she does a pretty good job of keeping her mask on, but it's also fairly tricky after a while if we've been outside, but I still want her to keep it on if she's near my parents or anything. And so when those things happen, then I want some kind of additional incentive for her to keep it on. And I think if it smelled really good, like some of her favorite things, then she might actually wear it. So my idea is that I have these cloth, like these cute cloth kids mask, and then they would be bundled with like a little scented spray that you could spray on the inside. Maybe they'd be a little bit extra padded near the nose, which could help kind of contain that spray. And I would spray it with scents like strawberry lemonade, creamsicle. She would want it to be called vanilla sprinkle cupcake, although I know sprinkles don't really smell. But maybe I would have some of the masks with patterns such as these sprinkles or these lemons, etc. So that is my concept. Obviously, if this is my concept, I am not going to be choosing a super strict or formal font. I'm going to choose something much softer, like the ones you see here, and much more informal because it's for a young kid. So here's some, you can see the font makes a really big difference on what you're trying to say. Here's one thing that I did first is I just tested out the Google fonts that are out there. Now Google Fonts has quite a few, but the font is going to have way more, but I think Google Fonts is a really good place to start. And so to use Google Fonts, you can be in just any Google application, or you can even just look up Google Fonts. But when you go to type, like here, I just typed Safely Sweets over and over again. And then if you want to find more fonts, if you drop that down, you click on More Fonts. You can add more and more fonts, as many as you want, they're all free, to your drop down, and then you can alter. So that's what I've done here is I found a bunch of different script fonts or handwriting fonts because I thought that would be a little less formal. And then I changed each of these so that there are different fonts to see which ones I like better. That's one way to start. Another way is to use a website like thefont.com where there are tons and tons of different ones on there. So that's what I'm going to use. In fact, that's what I've already used. Here is thefont.com. When I got on here, I first, and I'm going to go back so you can see where I came from. So when I first got here, I clicked on handwritten, but you can kind of play with these different categories. I think these categories are super helpful to narrow down. But I knew I wanted something either like handwritten or brush, something a little less formal. And then in the preview, I typed in Safely Sweet. So type in whatever word or part of your logo that you want to include. Even if it's just a letter, you can just type that in. Then I just started perusing, and I like actually a lot of these. I wanted it to be really easy to read. So I didn't want to do something like this where it's just completely scripted. And so I opted for this Miracle Justice one is what it's called. Now I have the option just to download it, which you're welcome to do, but for the purpose of this project, I can also just do a snip of it. And then I can copy that and paste that into Illustrator as well. So that's another option. And that, finding a text and then creating your name in that text is going to be step 2. So that brings us to step 3. So now we're gathering imagery that you might want to use. And so I suggest for the purpose of this project to make sure that you have enough details to try and incorporate some kind of imagery. Choose a graphic that will represent your brand. For example, for my mask, I was thinking that like strawberry lemonade would be like the main signature scent, because to me that's the only one that I think I would really want. The other ones sound a little too sweet if I weren't a little kid. And so I searched, and here's some tips for you. I searched black and white clip art and then the subject, and that's going to bring up images like you see here that are a lot simpler. Because with a logo, you want to simplify anyways. This is a really great way to start, and then you still have a lot of autonomy to be able to edit, change the colors, get rid of different elements, draw on top of this, whatever you need. But this is a really great place to start. If you start with like an actual photo of something, it can be a lot more complicated and give you a lot more trouble. So this is what I suggest as you're working. If for some reason you can't find a clip art image that you like, or you just have a completely original idea and so you know that you're not going to be able to find exactly what you're thinking, then I would consider either popping into Photoshop and drawing it up, and then just copying and pasting that into Illustrator. So what I've done is I've actually searched and I found a strawberry that I like. Notice black and white clip art strawberry. And then here's that lemon, black and white clip art lemon. And so now I have all these different things ready for me. And I am ready for step 4. 4, which is to make sure I have my color scheme, which I do. You should have already created a color scheme when you created your branding plan and your mood board, and pasted that into there. But we will make sure you have that because we will be using that for step 5. So step 5 is putting everything into Illustrator like you see here. Now, we've been using Photoshop quite a bit, but we really have not used Illustrator yet. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. You can see I've already done this project, so I'll show you how I get here. But for now, I'm just going to go to File, New, because I'm going to start from scratch with you guys. I like to just use a letter document because for the purpose of this, you're not going to really be printing. And I'm going to call it my Safely Sweet Design 1. And then I'm just going to go ahead and create that. So I'm creating a blank one. Perfect. So this is essentially my blank canvas. In Illustrator, they refer to it as an artboard. So I've got some things pulled up because I've been using it already, but yours should look, if I get rid of that, go back. Yours should look similar to this. If yours is missing some tools, that's because you might be in just regular essentials. A lot of times it'll default to that. So instead, just like we did for Photoshop, you're going to come up here, you're going to click Essentials Classic, and that's going to make it look like it did in Photoshop, where you've got the option bar up here, which I think is incredibly helpful. You've got more tools towards your left. Hopefully this is looking really familiar. You have your stroke and your fill that you already know. You have your colors over here. You even have a layers panel as we're working. And so lots of things that you're probably already very familiar with. Now there are also some big changes. So a couple important changes to note. My favorite change is that when I go to undo something, I don't have to Control-Alt-Z as I'm doing it to be able to go back more. I can just Control-Z as much as I want in this. So that's kind of a fun little trick. Another favorite thing is while I am copying and pasting these different things in here for step 5, you'll notice that I don't have to have it on free transform to be able to edit things. So Illustrator is made more for business, and so because of that, it's expected that you're going to be manipulating and moving different elements around much more often, and so you don't have to do that step. So kind of nice. I can just adjust it however I want. I'm just going to leave it there. And then I'm going to pop back in and copy, paste each of these different elements that I know I'm going to want to use. Cool, cool. So these are all my different major elements that I want to use. So very cool. The next thing I need to have on here is I need to make sure that I have my color scheme so that I can reference it. So if you don't have your color scheme saved to your laptop, then the easiest way is just to snip it straight from your mood board. So if I go back up to where my mood board is, you don't even need a big part. You just need to be able to see each of the colors, and it'll work as a little palette for you with the eyedropper tool. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to paste that in. In fact, I might even kind of just go like this. Notice how easy it is to move things around in Illustrator, which is super nice. And just kind of have it over here so that I can then grab it whenever I go to start coloring things. So this is all you need for step 5. And after this point, if I pop back in here, then you are ready to actually start manipulating those different items within Illustrator. And so I'm going to show you some different tools and things that you can do to transform your items into vectors and then make your awesome logo. So have a great day.